So now I want to move on to an old debate between Sam Harris and a guy named Rabbi Wolpe. And, of course, they're going back and forth on the existence of God and about religion. And in this clip, somebody from the audience is asking a question here, and Sam is answering it. It's about if society can be moral without God. Let's listen.
Is there an idea that we shouldn't be going outside telling people to be skeptical of God because it leads to a bad society?
Yeah, no, it's not a... there are kind of two levels on which I heard your question. I mean, how did you mean skepticism? Skepticism in terms of...
In every time where the rabbi said atheist society has gone bad, you're like, yeah, that's not my atheist society. That's an ideology.
Well, no. The thing is, it's a false analogy, because what was operative there was not too much skeptical inquiry on the nature of God. An unwillingness to believe in the divine origin of certain books. What was operative there were other ideas about the purity of German blood in the case of the Holocaust, ideas about economics and rather bogus ideas about science in the case of communism. And these were other ideas, and just the rampages of tribalism and greed and megalomania on the parts of certain leaders. Other things were operative. It's not. I want to make it very clear. I'm not holding religion accountable for all the bad things religious people have done in the world. I'm holding it accountable for all the bad things they only could have done because of religion. Okay, and that's why calling Stalin an atheist is a false argument. He was not moved on the basis of his critical inquiry, on the basis of his lack of faith, to kill tens of millions of people.
I want to clarify that, because I agree with you, but I don't think you're addressing the point. The question is not, I'm not saying that, put an atheist in and look at the terrible things they'll do. I don't want to be understood to be saying that. What I'm saying is, when you remove religion forcibly from a society, the question, and then I think this is what the questioner is asking, history shows that you get so far a terrible result.
That's not true. That's factually incorrect. Now, of course, nobody's arguing to forcibly remove it from society. I'm certainly not doing that. Sam Harris isn't doing that. Richard Dawkins isn't doing that. Bill Maher isn't doing that. We just want to convince everybody to not be religious. So nobody's holding a gun to them and saying, we're going to force you to be atheists. Atheists today believe in state secularism. You're allowed to believe whatever religion you want to believe, whatever ideology or philosophy you want to believe, but the government should be secular. And we're just trying to convince people to be atheists, not pointing a gun at them and saying you must be. But to the idea that, atheistic societies or societies without religion or God, history proves they always go bad. One word, Sweden. I love how people always ignore that. They ignore Sweden and Denmark and Norway and all of Scandinavia. We have living proof that not only can you be an atheistic, a secular society, right, according to the poll numbers, and be okay, you can thrive and kick the ass of the rest of the world in every relevant category. I mean, these are people, the best education systems in the world, the strongest middle classes in the world, the best social safety nets in the world, universal health care, universal daycare. They have essentially a society that has lifted everybody up, given everybody an equal opportunity, and it's a smart society. This idea that if God is gone or religion is gone, it's all chaos and everybody's stabbing each other in the streets, not only is that wrong, if anything, the opposite is true. That whenever you have fundamentalist religion in place, that's when people are more likely to stab each other and fight each other and always beat each other's throats. Plenty of examples of that around the world today. I mean, take, for example, Greece, over 99% Christian. Now, of course, the economic situation, other factors go into it, but look, there's an unemployment rate of about 25% over there and warring factions in the street on a daily basis. Turns out their religion didn't help them. Look at Saudi Arabia and Iran, super religious, super repressed. Same thing. Look at Israel, Palestine. You have Orthodox Jews versus fundamentalist Muslims in many circumstances. Of course, there's, political and economic situations that go into that as well. Nobody's denying that. That's, of course, a big factor of it. But religion exacerbates the problem and makes it worse. So they have it exactly backwards. Look, it's always a problem when you suspend credulity, it's dangerous. When you suspend logic, it's dangerous. When you say, I'm going to embrace the idea of not thinking, not using reason or rationality, that's a problem. Because then what you're doing is you're giving a giant bear hug to your worst, primitive, human, visceral impulses. So the impulses towards tribalism, you just gave that a thumbs up. You said, yes, I'm allowing you to exacerbate that because you say, I'm part of this group, you're part of the other group, you must be a bad person. So that's the problem. The problem is with religious societies more so than it's with, non-religious societies. Of course, non-religious societies can thrive, and they're better. Usually they're more reliant on science and secular humanism, which is the idea we should treat each other good for the sake of treating each other good because it's smart to do so. And to the idea that, there are any atheistic societies that do evil in the name of their atheism, that's ridiculous. Now, I can go down the list here if you want me to. So they always bring up, you always have religious people bring up, the biggest mass murderers ever were atheistic regimes. Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, Hitler, that's what they'll say. So let's break that down. First of all, Hitler, not an atheist. Hitler was raised Christian. He was a Christian. There are endless quotes about how he says, what I'm doing for God. I'm doing the work of God on this planet. The Germans had belt buckles that said, God is with us. Over 90% of Nazi Germany was Christian. The deep anti-Semitism stemmed from Christianity in the region. So the idea that, Hitler was an atheist, that was just factually incorrect. It's not true. Hitler was a mix of beliefs. He was both a Christian, but also what influenced his belief system probably even more is what's called German mysticism, which is another pseudo-religious ideology. It's basically German folklore, German fairy tales about this race that didn't exist called the Aryan race and about how they once ruled the planet and everybody else was underneath them. And on one side of the spectrum of humanity, the good people are the Aryans. The bad end of the spectrum of humanity is, of course, they'd argue gay people and intellectually disabled people and Jews. So that's also like a religious ideology, but he was religious. Stalin, yes, Stalin was an atheist, but what communism is a nationalistic religion. It is a state religion. You see this all over the place in communist regimes, and by the way, fascist regimes. Far right-wing and far left-wing statist regimes all have this religious component. Look at North Korea today. They call him the dear leader. They think he's a god in real life. The former Japanese Empire, they thought that Emperor Hirohito was a god in real life. They think these people are demigods. They say that Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong-il, they never shit in their life. They were born under a double rainbow and all these ridiculous stories. They did a Rubik's Cube by the age of 3 in 20 seconds and shit like that. That's religion! That's religion manifesting itself in a nationalistic way. It was the same with Stalin. He didn't kill in the name of science and logic and rationality and being an atheist. He killed in the name of his religion, which was communism. Mao, same thing. Pol Pot, same thing. So what you find is that the religious people who truly do act moral usually never even read their holy book. So again, to flip this guy's argument on its head, that what do you mean? You can't have a good society without religion. You're crazy. The exact opposite. If people really decided to dedicate themselves to their religions and they sat down and they read their holy books, if you read the Quran, there are some good things in there. It's certainly anti-racism, certainly pro-charity, and you can interpret different parts in different ways, right? But there is a lot of killing the infidel in there. There's no denying that. And please spare me if you try to disagree with that. I don't have a bad translation of the Quran. There are many bad parts of it. Same thing with the Bible, though. The Bible probably is even dumber. Why? Because you have this mix of Jesus's uber-communist ideology of fuck all rich people and let's all, go to the left of Karl Marx. You have a mix of that, but also this mix of the deepest social conservatism you've ever seen in your life, specifically in the Old Testament. It's true, stone gaze to death, that's in the Old Testament. Women, know your fucking role. You can never teach a man anything. All women teachers need to be banned. You have to ban the fish market because nobody could eat shellfish. Nobody can eat pork. Women need to sleep outside when they're on their period. You can ban all barber shops. You can never get a haircut or shave your face. You should be put to death if you do so. They have the death penalty for disobeying your parents. I mean, it's a mix of the craziest ideologies in all the different religions. So the reason why religious people end up acting moral, if they do, when they do, some of the time, it's because secular humanism and modernity has pushed back against their religious beliefs and said, you can't really have that belief and be part of this civilized society. So whenever religious people act good, it's because they're blowing off their religion. Anybody who really read their book and took it seriously would have the most backward society imaginable. So the idea that, to keep a society glued together, you need religion. To keep a society glued together, you need to not take your religion seriously or just be non-religious.